Okay, great. So let's dive in and get started. Thank you all so much for joining us for our Wednesday webinar series. Today, we're thinking about how to network virtually in ways that strengthen your network and build meaningful connections. You all are muted with your videos disabled, and my colleague Allison, who you just heard there, will be monitoring the chat box for me, and we may have time for questions at the end. So if you have questions, you can feel free to put them in there. We may not address them, but as you just heard, we are recording today's webinar, and we will be sharing the recording along with additional resources in a follow-up email later today. So before we think about the work of network building, let's first explore why networks are important. There are countless books and articles on the topic, and yet the idea of networking makes many people uncomfortable. Because often we think of networking as meeting strangers, engaging in boring small talk, and exchanging business cards. But having a strong network is much more than being a social butterfly. It actually has very little to do with how extroverted you are. I'd encourage you to think of your network as a web of connections, a collection of authentic relationships that you've created over the years. Your ability to maintain these relationships and build new connections is truly what makes your network strong. My name is Megan Hoyt, and I am thrilled that you're building your networking muscle by engaging with this content. I'm the Assistant Director for Alumni Personal and Career Development at Wake Forest University. And because we can't see each other in this space, I'd like to virtually introduce you to my incredible teammates. Allison McWilliams is our fearless leader and assistant vice president, and Lauren Beam is our rock and associate director. Together, we lead the Mentoring Resource Center and the Alumni Personal and Career Development Center at Wake Forest. We are fortunate to work with students, staff, and faculty to support and build an effective mentoring culture at Wake Forest, and with alumni beyond our campus to provide tools and resources that help them navigate their careers and lives after college. Lauren and Allison have already led 2 powerful webinars in this series on boundaries and change. You can watch those recordings on our website. We cannot begin this conversation about networking without acknowledging the current reality of work as we know it. Jobless claims are affecting nearly every industry, including the ones you'd immediately think of, like hotels, airlines, and restaurants, but also manufacturing, retail, sports, technology, and education. I cherry-picked some data from a recent survey of 250 companies conducted in late March by an outplacement firm in the US, and the numbers are pretty staggering. 49% of these surveyed companies are considering layoffs in the next 3 months. 14% have already furloughed employees, and another 37% have instituted hiring freezes. These numbers have a very personal face to them too, in our friends, family, neighbors, and alumni. Whew, I feel like I just need to take a deep breath after reading all of those stats. But there is better news. While I don't think networking is going to be the antidote to the mass amount of hardship and collective grief we're experiencing right now, I do believe in the power of human connection. Now more than ever feels like a good time to text your distant friend or email a note to a past colleague. I particularly loved this image of this one-on-one conversation because it kind of looks like us right now. Are they sitting at the same table, or are these 2 women in their own worlds? Regardless, either way, they're connecting. That's perhaps maybe the art of human connection. And there's actual science behind network building. Mark Granovetter began research in the 1970s to study what he called the science of strong and weak ties. Strong ties are the people you know well. They are your friends and your family. Weak ties are less defined. They are your acquaintances. Both strong and weak ties are important to your networks. In this photo, you'll notice that some people are connected directly to one another, while other people are connected through a relationship with a third person. This photo is representative of our actual networks. We have access to different groups of people and by extension, circles of influence because of our relationships with different people. Weak ties might bring you the crucial information about a new job opportunity. In this time, maybe a new small business that you'd like to help patron, or new connections within your industry. Given that experts estimate that between 70 and 85% of all jobs are filled via networking, it's important to think about both strong and weak ties as we think about building and strengthening our networks. Cultivating a diverse network has always been important. Even before we could feel the economic consequences of this global pandemic, our evolving world has been changing how we work. Our world is more global, fast-paced, tech-driven, and competitive than ever. Everyone is focused on being innovative and entrepreneurial. Careers of the past were about climbing the corporate ladder, but our careers today are what we would consider boundaryless. Employees move through jobs every several years, and now the responsibility for career development has truly shifted from the organization and onto the individual. So, have I sold you on the importance of networking yet? Let's check out some practical tools that you can use. Now, LinkedIn will tell you that the overwhelming reason that people log on to their website is to visit an individual profile. That's probably the most common reason you hop on their website too. But there are two other ways I'd encourage you to use LinkedIn for more effective networking on this platform. The first is the Wake Forest Alumni Group. With 19,000 members, this group is designed to facilitate conversations between alumni and to share programs, events, and resources relevant to the personal and career development of its group members. If you're not already a member, I'd encourage you to request to join. My team is the team who manages this group. Alumni share interesting posts and offer information about job postings at their companies here frequently. It's a really friendly place to engage on this professional platform, even if you don't consider yourself a big poster on social media. The second tool I'll recommend is my favorite thing on LinkedIn. It's called the People tool. And when I show this to alumni, almost to a person, they tell me, I had no idea this existed, or this was so helpful. I'll show you how to use it in the live demo in just a few minutes, but you can think of this tool as a way to filter alumni by city, company, job function, and by keywords. It's a way to use the power of LinkedIn to target your search. The next tool that I want to show you is Wake Network. Wake Network is Wake Forest online directory of alumni, parents, and friends of the university. You can use Wake Network to update your contact information, but the feature I'll highlight here is the search function. If Wake Forest has an alumni's email address, you can find it in Wake Network. LinkedIn is always kind of changing how we're able to message people, making Wake Network an incredibly helpful way for you to land your request directly into an alum's email inbox. You have access to Wake Network if you are an alum, a parent, or a friend of the university. You just need to register your account to access this information. So now, to provide you sort of with the full effect of the LinkedIn People tool, I'm going to pop us out of our slideshow here for a live demo. So I'm going to move us over to LinkedIn, and I'm going to show you the Wake Forest alumni group. It's in my recents, but you can always type it into the search box. So this is our alumni group, and as I mentioned, my team manages this, and you can see there's our webinar, so my team posts in here, but other folks post as well, and so it becomes a really kind of fun window into a professional way to connect with other alumni in your network. So the second thing that I wanted to show you here is the People tool. So the way that you get to this is actually by searching in the search toolbar here, Wake Forest University. So it'll bring up the school page, and it looks like this. So for what it's worth, every company that's on LinkedIn also has a company page, and it looks just like this, except for instead of alumni here, it says people. So what we're going to do is choose alumni, And this is where it brings up the ability to search for and filter out alums. What it's doing is aggregating the people who have Wake Forest University in their education. I should also note, lots of other schools have these as well. So if you have a grad degree from another institution, you can do this exact same thing on their school page. But what we're going to do is, because we are sort of interested in connecting with Wake Forest people, given that that's going to be potentially a warmer ask rather than maybe like a cold call that I know a lot of folks are kind of hesitant to do. So it's showing you, the 46,000 alumni. And we are going to change it up here. And so all you do is choose Show More. And it's showing you where they live, where they work, company-wise. And then if you tab over, it's showing you what they actually do. So in your intros, that's why I asked you to say, what's your job function? And that's sort of what you can think about, what you actually are doing on your day-to-day, but the industry that you're in is sort of also over here as well. So I'm going to draw from a couple different examples to show you two ways to use this tool. So let's say we wanted to choose a location first, right? So let's start with maybe Chicago. So already it's dropped our number down to a much, much more manageable number to kind of sort and look through at 800 alums. And it's going to change hopefully it'll go here soon. It'll actually, yeah, there we go. So now it actually changed the companies where they work. So before it looked a little different. The company makeup was a little different. But now it's sort of neat to kind of see, where do these people work? You can further filter it down. It's of course showing you all the folks that live in Chicago down here. But I like this tool for folks that may live or may work in industries that have sort of maybe not the usual happy hours or the traditional forms of networking. So if you were, for example, if you were in education, right, you may know the teachers at your school, but in order to kind of network with people across the city, this would be an easy way to choose who are the alums who live in Chicago, who work for the public school system. And then it shows them right here. So let's do one other one. I'm going to clear out our filters here. And let's choose another city. Let's go to Boston. And then instead of choosing where they work this time, let's go over and choose what they do. So for this example, I'm going to choose media and communication. And then already, look, it's changed our where do they work. You can see all these kind of different companies. So you can use this to kind of see, what are people doing if I'm interested in working in this industry. You can already start to see that they work at different kinds of companies. So I like to look at it in that way. And then also, let's, for the sake of argument, use a keyword search as well. So we could search, let's say we were interested in user experience. And so if I search this, it also adds that as a key filter. So you don't just have to use what LinkedIn is using as filters, you can add your own. And look, there's actually one person who does user experience in Boston, but because I'm no longer interested in sort of media and communication, I'll get rid of that filter. And we've got 49 people. So if you were interested in sort of finding ways to network with folks who do that, you could see all these companies where they work, and then you can check out their profiles here. So I love using this tool. I think it's a great way to check out individual profiles that might be interesting to you. You can use it, of course, like I said, to see where people work. You can look at when they graduated and see what their job title is now. And I like to do that to see kind of what leveling companies use. Are they using job titles like director or manager or, vice president? When you're applying to jobs, particularly after your first few years out of school, it's kind of hard to tell sometimes from job descriptions, like what job title you should be applying for. So I love kind of using this as a way to help sort of set expectations and get some understanding and visibility to how companies level their employees a bit. I always think it would be so fun to see how it looks if you were to use this tool, because you know what you're looking for and you can use the results to kind of refine your search. So what you get here, if you see someone is doing something interesting, you can actually go plug that in back at the top in the form of a keyword or another company. So, okay, so when you found a person you want to reach out to, you can then hop over to Wake Network. And you can create a profile if you don't already have one. I already have one, so you would just log in. And then what I want to draw your attention here to is the search bar. So across the top, you can choose search. And then when you found the name of the person whom you were looking for, you can go ahead and just enter their information into the search tab. So pretty cool, right? It'll pop up their name and you can choose them and then grab their email address. So I'm going to pop us back into our slideshow here. So now that you know how to find alumni at specific companies or within specific industries, and you know how to locate their email addresses, I want to talk about some best practices for reaching out. These guidelines are evergreen, meaning I would recommend them anytime. And I would especially caution you to use them as a litmus test right now. It's important to acknowledge that all of us are under greater amounts of stress because of the coronavirus pandemic. I think you can still reach out to new people during this time, but be especially mindful of these ideas. So first, be concise. Whether you are emailing or eventually asking in person again, make your ask clear and easy to respond to. If you compose a multi-paragraph email, the person receiving your email might find it harder to make time to respond. So be brief and save the details for your conversation. Second, be specific. What specifically are you asking of them? And why are you specifically asking them? My freshman year roommate and dear friend works at HelloFresh, the meal kit company. She recently told me that people reach out to her all the time, asking to talk to her about food. She works with food all day long, and she's never going to say yes to that request. Why? Because it's too general and it demonstrates no effort on the part of the person doing the asking. A better ask would be one that shows that you are curious about their role or their path or some other detail that you have learned about them. Third, be humble. Everyone is busy with their own lives, especially right now. Simply acknowledging this fact creates an understanding that you value this person's time. If they aren't able to say yes right now, think of your ask as a planted seed. The opportunity for you to connect may come around again. If you've done your homework in crafting a good ask, having the conversation will be a breeze. I hear from alumni sometimes who tell me that they are worried about taking up someone's time, especially if this person is someone who's higher up in their organization and presumably busier than normal. To this valid worry, I would offer that the best use of someone's time is by doing some prep work ahead and by asking thoughtful questions. I'm very confident that you know how to do these two things well. To offer you an example though, I'm actually going to share a tool that I have created to help me prepare. I use it before every one-on-one conversation I have, and I call it my conversation guide. I have a template copy that I update as I prepare for a conversation. I will share this guide in the follow-up email, but here are the nuts and bolts. So first, I jot down key facts about the person, their job title, tidbits I have learned about them, how I know them, and anything I want to keep top of mind for our conversation. Second section that I create is small talk questions. I actually think of a few starter questions that I might ask just to get the conversation moving easily. The third section is one that I love. I use the header and the sentence and I sort of fill in the blank I'm curious about. I jot down questions that I have specifically for them. Maybe it's questions about their path, how they got to where they are, anything I just really want to know more about from things that I've already learned about them already. The fourth section is what I call thought questions. I have questions that I love to ask everyone. Perhaps I might ask someone, how did you make a certain life decision? How did you know it was time to go back to school or to pursue that hobby of yours? I tell them oftentimes, just walk me through your decision-making process. Another question that I love is, if you could peer into the future, what would you be doing in 5 years? I think it's important to remember that people are not in stagnant life phases, regardless of when you meet them. You know, we are all ambitious and have ideas about our futures. And so I love to just learn what people envision for their own lives. So as a plug, I'll say to you, when you hear a good question, just email it to yourself. Myself and my team, I think we probably consider ourselves like collectors of questions. And so this is something that I'm sort of always keeping in the back of my mind for when I hear a good one that I might want to ask of someone else. Finally, I create a section that's ending questions. So I jot down some questions to help me end the conversation well. You know, I might say, based on our conversation today, is there anyone you think it might be helpful for me to connect with next? You know, sometimes people will open their networks up to you. That's not always a given, but if they are willing to, it's a great way to kind of continue the conversations that you might like to be having with other people. And then similarly, the other thing that I always love to ask people is, how can I be helpful to you? It's a nice way to be able to help repay the favor. And even if you can't help them right now, they'll remember you if you can help them again in the future. So let me say, that's a lot of sections and a lot of questions. It's unlikely that I use all of these. I love to over-prepare with more structure because I find it actually helps me be open to new ideas that naturally occur during the course of our conversation. You should, of course, feel confident to prepare in whatever ways work best for you. And then the last tip I'm going to cover is best practices for staying in touch. You just had an amazing conversation with someone. What do you do next? Many people, I think, struggle with this next step because they wonder, you know, how often should I update someone? Am I being annoying? Aren't they too busy for just like me to send a silly email to them? And as with most things, I would say use your best judgment, but here are 3 tips I would offer to help guide you. So immediately after your conversation, jot down 3 notes: something you learned, something you're grateful for, and something you will do as a result of your conversation. These 3 notes will make it easy for you to thank them and update them in the future. And they help you cement your learning about what was memorable and noteworthy. Second, how you thank them is up to you, but expressing gratitude for their time and knowledge is a must. If a handwritten thank you note is your thing, take the time to drop them a note. I'll offer a controversial recommendation here to encourage you to write them a thoughtful email. That bit of gratitude stays in their inbox and can be a helpful reminder about the details of your conversation for the next time that you may reach out to them. The third thing that you can do to stay in touch is to provide a progress update. This creates an easy way for you to keep in touch with this person. If they introduced you to someone in their network or recommended a resource, sharing your thoughts creates a meaningful way for you to stay connected. As you thank and update this person, don't let perfect be the enemy of the good here. Don't overthink it, just be you. So in conclusion, as we wrap up here, I just want you to remember that networking is connecting. Stay open and curious to the world and people around you. Find who you need in each part of your journey and look for ways to be helpful to others along the way. And lastly, just reach out, send the email. People will be glad that you did. Next, I'm going to share, that's a wrap on this topic, but we have stacked an incredible lineup of online learning opportunities for you. In next Wednesday's webinar, you can learn everything you need to know about creating a strategic job search with Sharon Vogler. And on April 29th, Tiffany Tate will share remote work hacks. We are actively planning Wednesday webinars for the month of May, and we hope you'll join us for whichever topics are interesting to you. Additionally, we are offering weekly resume reviews. If you send your documents to wfualumnicareers@gmail.com by Monday at 5 p.m., we will send you feedback on Tuesday morning. We really hope that you will stay connected with us. Join the Alumni Wake Forest LinkedIn group. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Life After Wake. Subscribe to our newsletter Beyond the Forest to get a first look at all of our upcoming programs. I've listed our website here as well and my email. If we talked about something today that you're continuing to be curious about, or if you have questions about the tools that I went over, don't hesitate to email me. I love connecting people to who and what they need to be successful in their next step. And that concludes our kind of time together here today. We do have about 5 minutes left. So if there are any questions, I'm going to peruse the chat box. But if you do have to leave, I want to say thank you so much for showing up for yourself today. It isn't easy right now, especially to step away from home and work life. And I hope you consider this as an investment that you just made in yourself by being here. So I'm grateful for you, and I look forward to connecting with you in the future. So let me peruse the chat here. It looks like, what are your thoughts regarding email versus phone call to reach out to someone you have not spoken with in the past? Yeah, this is a good one. You know, some people love the phone these days. And especially now that, you know, we have our emails on our phones. I mean, you're sort of always getting that person on their phone potentially anyways. And, you know, this isn't a hard and fast rule, but I think if you haven't spoken to that person in the past, email would be my recommendation, because it sort of gives them time to look you up, to see how they might know you, how they're connected with you. I saw this recent study about how to kind of get in touch with people the quickest. And, you know, text messages are really sort of that way these days. But the thing that I thought was so interesting was how personal your text inbox is, right? Like, it's very different from email. And I sort of consider phone calls to be that way too. Of course, if it's a business phone call and you're kind of connecting with someone in your industry, you know, the phone may be sort of the quickest and easiest way to make a connection. So that would be my thoughts on that. I would go with email, and you can always sort of pivot as you move along. So let's see, I'm going to keep moving to see if there are any others. Oh, here's a good one. Okay. What's your favorite place to snag old school stationery to send handwritten thank you notes? Oh my goodness. You know, I really love like postcards. So even if especially ones that are not like location specific. So if I'm ever traveling, I will look for a postcard. I have a collection of them in my house, and sometimes I'll pull from those. But I'm a paper person, so I really enjoy like perusing. This isn't old school at all, but I love going to Target and just seeing what they have there. Of course, there are so many great small businesses too, online on Etsy and everything, or in local bookstores. I think that's probably a place that I love grabbing things that are not old school, but are definitely neat in the stationery department. One more question here. Let's see. Okay, so if you made a connection months ago, perhaps maybe 4+, is it all right to still reach out to them to take them up on their offer to connect or mentor? Yes, I would say absolutely. Especially if they made that like they intended it, potentially, like I'm thinking you're meaning here, like if it was sort of like an open door kind of thing. You know, you'll just want to be delicate in how you sort of frame it up again, right? Like give them that out here might be really something you want to kind of take advantage of. Just acknowledging again, like I said, that they are busy and that you know that you connected with them a long time ago, it feels like. But if they're still open to a conversation to connect again, that you would really love to take them up on that. So I think that's totally well within the bounds. If they made that offer, I'm assuming that they didn't think that it would happen right away. And it's really smart, I think, for you to think about how you you know, are always thinking about your network with people who are past colleagues, past coworkers. I mean, those people are still in your network and are definitely people who, if you had a relationship with, are still available to you as a resource. So we are right at 12:30, and I do want to be a good steward of your time. So I'm going to go ahead and end our presentation there. Thank you all again so much. Be on the lookout for the recording and the additional resources that we will send as soon as the closed captioning is ready for our website. Thank you all so much.